Okay, baby birds. Today I'm going to show you how I install bullet buttons on the highpoint carbines. There's lots of ways to do it. This is just the way that I go about it. The first step is to remove the bolt handle. This particular rifle is new in box, so it's already got that taken off. These here are the two main takedown pins. And when we go ahead and flip the rifle over, you'll see these little retaining clips. You're going to need to use your non-marring pick or some sort of tool and go ahead and swivel those so that the pins can pop free. Next step is to slide this little bottom clip off. It slides towards the muzzle when you're taking it off. You can use a brass punch or whatever you've got handy, just be careful not to dent it. Now we've got to get this upper handguard piece off. You basically just flip the little lever up, and that relieves tension and allows this shroud piece to just slide forward towards the muzzle. And at this point, the stamped metal upper receiver cover sort of thing should just slide right off. Now we have to tackle all these screws that hold the plastic body together. I don't take all of the screws out. I leave some of the screws in the stock. If you take everything out, the whole thing will split in two, and you won't have any way to sort of keep tension on the parts when you put the new bullet button stuff in. So only take out the screws that I'm showing you here. The first one's in the stock, the handguard, and the grip, and the small one near the trigger. I actually had to use a little pick to get these grip screws out. They didn't want to pop out on their own. Now you've got to remove this bottom rail on the underside of the handguard. There are two screws here. These screws go into some square nuts that are retained inside of the handguards, so when you get to those, make sure you remember where they go and their orientation and all that, because I'll have to go back in the same spot. There's one last little clip underneath the trigger guard that you have to get to before the case will split open. This one's a little tricky to get to, but just be patient with it and you'll get it off. At this point, the case should basically open in half. These are the little square nuts I was telling you about for the rails, so make sure you don't lose those. At this point, the action should basically just pop out. You might have to split the case apart a little bit, but it'll just come out through the top. And here are the magazine release components that we will be taking out and modifying slightly with the bullet button parts. Now, before you take them out, go ahead and play with it and just make sure you know how it works, and look at where all the parts go and make sure you'll be able to put them back where they need to go. And go ahead and remove everything and see what you've got. Now here's the bullet button kit. This one just has a black metal threaded cap and a clear piece of tubing. The black threaded cap is going to thread into that hole there that was originally for the mag release button. The black button cap itself is going to be discarded. You don't need that anymore. Go ahead and start threading it in by hand and then do a few turns with the wrench. You don't need to screw this in all the way. It's okay if there's some threads showing. You might actually need to adjust this as you go. If it's screwed in too far or too little, it won't work properly. Again, here's the orientation of the original mag release parts. This is the black plastic cap you're going to take off and throw away. And the clear piece of tubing is going to be pushed over the shaft. Now when you push it on, you don't want to push it on all the way. You need to push it about halfway. This rubber tubing acts as the new stop. You want it about here. Now, with the spring in place, carefully slip everything back in place in the same orientation that it was previously. I like to seat the spring in first just to make sure the spring gets where it needs to be, and then you feed the shaft through the new black threaded cap that you screwed into the pistol grip. Should look something like this. Now you just want to make sure that everything's in place, that the spring is where it needs to be, and that everything's functioning. So go ahead and take a punch or something skinny and just test it all out. Here's a close-up view of what you should have. Take notice of the placement of the plastic tubing. Now for the real test, go ahead and pop the action back in place carefully and make sure you don't knock the mag release parts out of place. And see if it will work with a real magazine. See, it's not coming out, and it'll only pop out with the punch pushing down on the bullet button components. This is what you need to see. If it's not working this way, keep adjusting things till it works properly. If everything's on the money, then it's time for reassembly. First step is to put the handguard rail nuts in place. They feed through into the little square holes there. Go ahead and screw that rail back in with both screws. After you're done with this, go ahead and function check the bullet button parts again. It's very easy to knock them out of place while you're reassembling. It's a good idea just to function check it on every step until the case is completely screwed back together. Now pop the top cover back on. Put the front shroud on and pull the tension bar down. Now put the large clip on the underside, just hammer it into place. Pop in both of the main assembly pins. Flip the gun over and secure the latches for the pins. And put the small trigger guard clip in place. Now pretty much all that's left is to put all the screws back in place. Hopefully you kept them organized and you know which ones go where. Now if you've done everything properly and didn't let any of the mag release parts pop out of place while you were reassembling, you should be good to go. Do a last function check, make sure it slips in and out as it should. All done.